There's also an article of mine in this with the same title, that people participation in processes in rebuilding Ukraine. It's at the crossroads, and that will be part of the discussion. I have to leave really right away after this meeting, so after this presentation for Mariupol project, the Mariupol vision that we made within Roskvid. And it's very interesting to see that Mariupol City Council, who is in exile right now, they decided to organize 4 teams for this future city strategy, and they are collaborating the rest of the day in a new kind of process that nobody knows how it should be or could be, because we definitely decided those 4 teams should never compete with each other. And also that is some kind of tool that we are inventing here right today. There can, about Mariupol future, there can be no winners and there can be no losers. We just have to find the best solutions together. And I think that was one of the interesting examples of participational design. And this is also interesting. This got a little bit reskilled. What Roskvid very often says, it's very much about the people. It's one of the 5 values, and it's about the participational transformation in this as well. So the question is, if you want to build back better, or whatever slogan we use for Ukraine, there is a really complicated question about how to do this really fast, and how does that relate to this participational approach, because people think and experience very often that participation processes take a long time and cost a lot of money. I would say actually the decentralization process that Ukraine was going through for the last 8-9 years should continue, even in times of war, and maybe especially in times of war. And I will try to explain it in the next couple of minutes. My basic steps I always use in the processes that I'm organizing is discuss the interests and values of all stakeholders, citizens, renters or owners of future developments, the developers themselves, the architects, the municipality, the mayor, try to map them with their interests. And then if you have that, you can make, it's like a design itself, to design the process, to design the process of the steps that you want to go through. It's just a simple timeline, and as simple as possible. And you put all those interests and all those different stakeholders in this process. And then agree on this process together with all the stakeholders. So let the stakeholders themselves decide on this process, and that they agree on that. Yeah, here is my position, and this is my moment that I can influence in this kind of way. And then start designing and follow this process. Never leave the process unless you agree with all stakeholders again that you want to change the process for a better reason. And do not fake or mistake. It's too obvious, but it happens too often as well. And in participation, involving residents, involving neighborhoods, if the process is good, the people often will accept the results, even if it's not their first choice. So when they see that, like, huge, for example, this room, when here we have a discussion about a topic, shall we go left or shall we go right? If 80% of the people will say we go right, and what is left, yeah, right for you, yeah, then the other 20% will say, okay, I heard the argument is maybe not my first choice, but I will agree going right with you. Or they even agree to disagree and go left themselves. It's always the discussion that makes it understandable to where to go and what decisions will be made. And very often the stakeholders have many, many more similarities in their interests than you expect. So we always talk in participation before starting a process, but people will disagree. In 80 or 90% of the people of the situations, the people will agree. They have the same interests. So stick to that as well. I mean, first build around the things that you agree on and that you have the similar interest. And then you can build from that, you can build the next dialogue phase. For example, a project that I did with approximately 1,000 people, where in the end 450 people started living in a building project in the Netherlands. Everybody thought this was, so the developer said, this participation process is going to take too long, it will take years, and it's going to be too costly, it will be too expensive. And then the residents I wanted to involve in this, the future residents, they said, this process is going to take too long, and it's going to be maybe too expensive because my neighbors probably want too expensive things. And then I said, okay, that's interesting. If everybody has the same fear and all of us have the same interest, then that it shouldn't become too expensive and it shouldn't become such a difficult, complicated, and then extensive process, then we're on the same page and we can organize the process around it. So find the interest and go back to that all the time. And then always look for the energy. It's not something you can design, but during the process, there is those moments that you feel, here we have something really positive, here we have something extremely important. That's the moment you have to grab the thing you have to grab. You have to make a togetherness about that, around it. In a process about positive, but also about negative things. Because if it's really negative, when there's really some kind of tension, you also have to grab it, because then you're having a transparent, clear, and an important, valuable discussion already. My advice for Ukraine now, like I said, decentralize even now, and especially now. I cannot mention this more than enough, because the society is ready. The society deserves it, and the result will get better for sure. I know in all the processes that in the end the result will get better if you have this situation, and I believe that it gives stability. I see that from a relatively distant position, of course, I mean Ukraine quite often, but not all every day. I see that Ukrainian society in the last 8 years, and especially in last year, is willing, capable, feeling urgency to really take the future of the country into their own hands. Much more than I see it happening in France, Belgium, the Netherlands, or Germany. So I see this as a huge opportunity. It's like an amazing challenge, how to organize that in a good way. But this is the moment that you can organize it that way. And we can take a leap forward in participation processes even, because the responsibility that all the Ukrainians take themselves in even fighting, in humanitarian aid, in supporting with whatever is needed when something goes wrong, when something tragic happens, which happens every day, unfortunately. If you get that energy into the process of rebuilding, well, then there's a power that you can never get better. I told that already. Give two examples from Ukraine that I did last year. December 2021, Solidar, a small village with salt mines next to Bakhmut. We all know what happened with Bakhmut. Looks like this, just an ordinary Eastern Ukrainian village. No real public spaces, no real urban planning, but beautiful mines in the salt mines. It's almost looked like a ski resort underneath, because these salt mines are white. This is what it looked like. And we were asked by Izolacja, Major van Schaik and me, we were asked to do a process about public space and try to connect the municipality as well, because they were not really into that topic themselves. But Izolacja, as a previous Donetsk and previous Kiev organization, they said something has to happen here near to the front line, and public space and public discussions and public life should be more emphasized. And we started with a group like this, and there was like a little bit interest, but also a little bit, okay, let's see what happens, what's gonna go. We started having 2 weeks up and 2 weeks down, and then 2 weeks up of meetings in Solidar. And we first started collecting the interest from both municipality and from this group of active people in this small village. And we started connecting and just simply counting what is the main priority. Simple methods and totally transparent with the group. People started to be involved because they felt, okay, something is happening here. It might be even interesting. I can do this for you. I can arrange this for you. This guy arranged salt for us because in the end we made a model. We made like salt tubes. They started to help us making a video. So it's not participation only about decision making, but involving people in the process. They made a video about this the thing, and in the end we had in the second part. So I said 2 weeks up, 2 weeks down, 2 weeks up, and we were at the second project. We finalized the vision about urban space. I'm not going to show you that because it's more about the process here. And we finalized it and we discussed it again with the group, and we asked how many things did you like and how many things didn't you like. So all the people, they gave their insights and all those sticky notes. If they were green, they liked it. If they were red, they didn't like it. And as you can see, there's hardly any red. Like I think there was only one red part of that. And they recognized what they have seen, been introduced themselves, and they showed the topics themselves. And even the small kids from a school came and joined this process. And then the city was convinced this is the way how we do it. Griverie, a process about the whole city strategy. Unfortunately, because of the war, also this process stopped. Finding the key elements, discussing with like a group of 45 people, what are the most important topics for this town for the next 10 years? Finding a way, what would you like? What would you think? And it was not about architecture, it was about life. It was not about mobility, it was about their future. This was the kind of questions that we asked, raised different topics, and you can translate it later into urban planning schemes. And we started with this empty map and started simply drawing what was there and started drawing the process together. And there was this, of course, the picture in the end. For Griverie, nobody really done this before. They really had no idea. And there's a third example, because this happened in 2015 in Mariupol. Many people are not coming to those meetings, just going to the street, asking them with simple pictures, again, what do you like and what do you dislike? Red or yellow sticky notes about this city. Make some kind of a prioritization of the topics that you needed to care of. I'm going to skip this one. And then now we did this process about Mariupol city strategy, as I just explained. So what are my recommendations? How to act now? From my point of view, in this moment of time, participation should be implemented in the martial law. It's an empty chapter now, and we should try to put that on the agenda for this moment already. I think the codex that Hannah Bondar told about yesterday should be part of that, but it takes 2 years. So can we find a way how this participation process can be implemented? And for general spatial laws, urban planning laws, I think it will be interesting to define a minimum of participation in different kind of topics. I'll tell a little bit later on the next slide. And the investment should be done in a few pilot projects that could be driven around Ukraine. And of course, educate and build a process around it. Last 2 slides. How would I design this law? Or this, how would I propose this? There's this old theory, 1969, which is still valid in participational approaches. It's the ladder of Arnstein. She was, I think, a sociologist who found out there were different kind of participation processes, participation topics in England. The higher you are on the ladder, the decision. So in the process that you design, the higher you are, the more influence the citizens have. And it doesn't mean that you always have to be on the highest step, but you have to define with the stakeholders where you are. This could be the legal context in urban planning. So you could define in the different layers of a city how high you put the ladder and the citizens' involvement there. This is a little bit. This is the article that I wrote about next week for the next week conference. So you can hear after the next week. You can hear more about that. But this is a methodology how to find this step on the ladder for each layer. For example, about public space, you take a higher step than, for example, with ecological issues. And it's just an example. The red part is just an example. But this is a way how Ukraine could structurize, or Ukrainian cities could structurize their participation methodology. And this is what I hope to implement in those pilot projects done by whoever can join in that. If you want to know more, we also wrote a participation handbook, but that time is limited. So here is the logo, the thing. How do you call it? The QR code, and it's all about it. This is it.
Thank you so much, Fulco, for the presentation, as well for the beautiful pictures of Soledar. So Thank you. My first question would be, and I'm also encourage you to join the discussion, would be also about the models and approaches of participation, because you mentioned Sherry Arnstein, the concept which was developed in 70s in US, so quite a long time since then. And since then, it's also like the discourse about participation has widened and developed further, especially regarding the post-conflict and post-natural disease areas. So there is very specific ways how to make participation in order not to make it as a controlling thing or not to like impose power, etc. But actually working with the vulnerable groups is something very specific to the participational processes. And in Ukraine, actually, we have like all types of contexts and very different models of participation would be needed. Could you please a little bit reflect on that? How do you see those models and what is possible to be implemented?
Thank you, because there's a few slides ahead. So this is exactly what this handbook also is about. So agree, the Ukrainian context is post-conflict, during conflict even. So which tools do you use and for who do you do it? So we try to describe all the different tools in different categories in this handbook related to the things you just mentioned, Natalia. So some of those tools you can mainly use as a process designed together, finding out different interests, finding out different perspectives. Some of them are more related to decision making, and we try to map them in this handbook for people to understand them more precisely and literally connected to the Ukrainian context. So this was not about US. This book has been trying to transform all the knowledge that we had with the Ukrainian partners, with European partners, and with US partners into the Ukrainian context right now. So hopefully this book will help a little bit about how we can organize it here.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any questions or comments, please?
Hi, I'm Luke Johnson. I'm a journalist living in Germany, but I spent a lot of time here. My question is about regulation. I mean, how do you, there's going to be a need for a lot of housing after this. I mean, there is right now, but, you know, in Turkey, after the earthquake, they built all this cheap housing and you know, much of it was destroyed in the next earthquake. You know, whereas in California, it's like impossible to build anything, and it takes years. How do you balance that sort of need for speed without sort of sacrificing, you know, people's safety in building space, building housing, you know, that's livable? Thanks.
Thanks. So I'll try to answer the question from the perspective of participation, because there's a lot to say about safety and regulations and technical solutions but that is a topic in itself. But I think regarding participation, the speed of the need for the speed to build those houses, whatever choice they make, temporary, movable, permanent, fast, whatever material, whatever choice they make, the decisions need to be made fast. And that's what the interest of both donors, future IDPs or future residents, or the municipality representatives, they are aligned again. So there is not a contradictory there. Like I said in the beginning of the speech, the interest is very often the same. That means that the process needs to be very simple and very fast. So you have like 3 choices that have been prepared, and you make a choice within 2 weeks, and then you speed on. But you make the choice together, for sure. Otherwise, there will be all kinds of leftover discussions that people feel not heard, feel not organized, feel left out, and then the living conditions, because of that process, will be worse as well. So if security, if technical solutions do not live to the standards of safety that people need to be able to live their comfortable life, then it will be in this condensed process, it will be part of the arguments to make this really fast decision on, but really, really fast.
Hey, thank you. We have already like two hands, right? And I saw already there, so I would really ask to keep it short, but we can then take all three.
I'll try to.
Thank you.
Okay, yesterday on networking, we have quite interesting question. Should we participate 100% of people or not? Or maybe less?
Never exclude people. That's the main thing. So it doesn't mean that everybody wants to be included, or has time, or has the thing, but never exclude. If people want to, then it's not like, okay, but you're number 51 and we said we only have 50. So that's my main advice. And there was another topic about including IDPs in their new homes, in new cities, or including IDPs in the city that they left. Yes, on both sides, they have extra voices, in my opinion. To include the people who are having their interest, knowing their interest, whether it's temporary, for the future situation, include.
Thank you. Then Peter, please.
Hi, Petr Navrat from Prague. I was actually heading the public participation unit in Prague. And for us, it was very important to also talk about the limits of public participation so that we are credible, towards the politicians and towards the investors who very often say, public participation doesn't work. And so I was wondering whether you work with this as well. For us, the limits is obviously you never reach representation. So whatever you do, it's never representative. Second, it's very often dominated by certain interest groups, which we experience in Prague. And I think maybe the third thing to understand is that it works very well at the level of needs identification, but not at the level of design. So what we say is that it's the architect or the designers that have the global knowledge, the technical knowledge, let's say, the process knowledge, and it's the people who have the local knowledge of what works, what doesn't work. But we have to say it from the beginning that this is how things are. So maybe your reflection of whether this is something that you find is also important.
Difficult to answer in a couple of seconds. Try. Yes, no. Is that you asked three questions? Yes, agree there are limitations. Yes, that should be mentioned. But also the people, again, the residents themselves are happy when the limitations are there. That is not everything for everybody, because they know the process will not be able to, nobody will be able to handle this process. So to have these limits is for them as well very important. So I see the municipality or the mayor as much as a stakeholder as the residents themselves. Then second, I'll jump to the last one to make it faster. The design, I've had processes where the design process indeed was also part of the participation, not only with sketching itself, but because that was sometimes interesting, sometimes not. But sometimes as it really be close to the architects, really be close to the designers. So I wouldn't limit myself to that, but it depends on the skill, depends on the typical project, depends on the kind of involvement and the interest. Again, start with the interest and then you can make the process around it. So it's the topics that I really recognize. I start with the highest point of the ladder, usually in my own thinking, and then limit ourselves to make it a doable process that everybody agrees on. Yeah, sorry, not enough time for deeper on this.
Okay, hopefully there will be space for that discussion as well later on. Like Andriy.
So my question is, participation is also about trust, and trust is very important. Yesterday, when Anna Bonder showed her presentation, she showed these 5 fingers, and there were like residents and the rest. Actually, it like shows the actual situation in Ukraine. There is no trust between this finger and the rest. So I fear a great risk that when a lot of projects of participation will happen soon, and like a lot of people would be encouraged to believe that they really influence something and they can change something for better, and then for some reasons that may just happen, this doesn't actually come into being, they will just like once again lose trust even more. So how should we deal with this?
This is not only in Ukraine. This happens all around the world, actually. This lack of trust and the difficulties in that. That's why I said in one of the beginning slides, if you design a good process, make it simple, and then don't fake it because you'll break it. That if you If you fake it, if you change the process, then the trust will disappear right away. So if you have clear statements in the beginning about expectations, about limitations, and then about what can be expected and who makes the final decision, or how to make the final decision, what will be done with the advice or the consultancy or the influence of the residents. Yeah, if you have that clear from the beginning, then people can decide, okay, I step into this process or I will stay out of that. And that's, yeah, then step by step, you can build this trust. I mean, it happened the same in the Netherlands, it happens, and still many situations, it's not the trust that you hope that you want to have. We have to build on that. It's the only way, because the other option is no participation at all, and that will be even worse.
Great. Thank you so much, Fulco, for the presentation, for this input.